I was hoping I could see JR here too. Maybe he'll be here in a moment. You know, I'd like to thank JR for what he did. You know, we went through a lot of changes over the last 12 years with the WBA, and he did a great job guiding us through that. You know, we're an organization of collaboration to really just drive this connectivity forward. And I think many of you know it's kind of my passion. Connectivity is a huge passion of mine, so it's an honor to be able to be the chairman and work with all of you. I mean, all of us collectively have been collaborating for a lot of years to really drive this seamless connectivity forward. And I think, you know, with 6G, and I'm going to get into it in a presentation in a minute, but with 6G and with Wi-Fi 7 and 8 coming to fruition, we've got a lot of work to do. And so it's going to be a lot of fun to work together with your expertise and dedication and passion to really just keep making and driving our seamless, interoperable, secure connectivity forward. So thanks, and look forward to working with you.
And your participation is fundamental for our technical programs, to get your views, your insights that can shape the different technical work that is done in WBI.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
No, I think I'm next.
You are next. You can stay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And I will leave you with next speaker, Dr. Derek Peterson. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. So I decided to take a little bit of a change today in my presentation and talk about the Converged. I mean, who's shocked that I'm going to talk about Converged? No, I don't think anybody who's seen me speak is like going, oh, Derek's going to talk about convergence. And many of you know that probably is 20. You know, I came from cellular before I went to Boingo, and I realized that Wi-Fi was hard to connect to. And I was like, why is it? And we were a Wi-Fi company when I joined Boingo. You know, we were strictly Wi-Fi. We did DAS still. We've been doing it since '99, but we were more focused on the Wi-Fi, and I realized it wasn't converged as well as it needed to be. So that's why I joined the WBA years ago, was to push that forward. And here it is, I don't know, 12 or 14 years later, I'm still pushing. And I think it's important. It's a passion of mine to kind of keep pushing this forward. So I'm going to be talking about the next era of converged wireless. All right, so we've been talking about it for a long time together. And what we really are trying to make happen is all these networks should work together. You know, as a CTO for Boingo, when I go inside of a venue, and that's how I kind of think of them today, there's a lot going on inside venues today. Everything's moving digital, AI's everywhere. You know, you have to make sure that all those networks are secure, and you're bouncing back and forth between network technologies. And it's getting more and more complex. And so, you know, I used to always say 5G, you know, because it gets all the hype, was about trying to get networks to finally focus on use cases and the importance of going into a location and saying, what are we trying to do with the network? Instead of just saying, oh, I can build all these great wires and wireless access points and let everybody else figure it out. It was like, hey, in 5G, let's start talking about all the use cases, and it changed. For me, when we start thinking about 6G and Wi-Fi 7 and Wi-Fi 8, and now satellite and all the other new technologies that are coming in, it's now about recognizing how we can make it all work together. And so to me, that's really what we do in the WBA, is we go and we work with other organizations, we collaborate with them, and then we try to figure out how can we make those work together? How can I make it when you're on the private network and you move to a public network, whether it's Wi-Fi or cellular, that's a seamless transition, that all the use cases still work. And so how does it make sure that they work together? So around that, what we know is because all this changing, these connectivity is so important, we have to figure out how to make this work better together. And so we need to look at our infrastructure no longer as separate silos of technologies, but actually as a use case that leads through that, right? And so when we work with a venue, whether it's you know, a stadium or transportation, which we're known for, or you know, a hospital. It's recognizing the flow that's going through that location and how you're going to deal with it. There's the way you get there, and then there's parking, and then after parking you got to get into the venue, and there's some kind of a ticket in a lot of these situations. And then once you're in there, you got to create experiences that somebody enjoys, and all of these take different network technologies. There's no one network technology or one communication technologies that's solving it all, right? And that's the challenge, is how do you create that experience when you're bouncing across technologies? And so one of the ways we do this, and many of you know I also sit on the board of the Ongo Alliance, and one of the things that, you know, I remember 1996 when I was working in cellular and satellite back when I first got out of the military, we were all the cellular systems, you'd lose your connection as you went from tower to tower, and you go to a different location, you'd lose your connection. And so what happened? 3GPP got together with GSMA, and they ended up creating roaming standards. And those roaming standards enable it so that when I travel to Paris from the US, or I was in Oman last week, and I can go place to place and I'm always connected, because there's a roaming standard for being able to connect everything. So the first thing we have to do is we have to figure out, how do you connect all these things together that are the heterogeneous networks? So GSMA did that. And if we go back to our history in the WBA, that's what we did. I remember one of my first meetings was with you running the RICS group, and I was sitting there going, what is this RICS thing? And I had to learn about the RICS. And what the WBA was first started for was trying to figure out, well, if you've got 650 million, I think is the latest number I heard or something from Matt, hotspots around the world, how are you going to make it so you can connect to all of them? And so roaming becomes very important part of it. In the Ongo Alliance, we're not even talking about roaming yet. We're just trying to get it out, you know, private networks. But they've got a challenge now too. How do you roam? So you go set up a private network, and you need to roam from multiple private networks. If you want to join those together, and there's a big group of airports that's saying, hey, we're all going to launch our own private network for planes to be able to have a private network that's secure for them to connect to. How do I make sure that that works across all the different airports? Well, you've got to start thinking about roaming. And so that's what the WBA has been focused on for a long time, was this idea that we're going to end up making this seamless connectivity across all Wi-Fi. And then we expanded it and we said, now it's going back and forth across Wi-Fi, across cellular, across satellite, across all these new technologies. How do we do that? And that's a very important part of what we're working on today with open roaming. And it's a very important part of what we all still need to collaborate on, because it's still not functioning perfectly, right? We all got a lot of work to do to keep moving that forward. And as we look forward then to the future and this ubiquitous connectivity across all these things, we know that roaming protocols are going to have to change, right? So we're going to add in satellite, we're going to add in IoT devices, we're going to add in some new technologies along the way, AI capabilities, new connected devices, whether it's, you know, watches and cameras and glasses and all these new things. And along the way, we've also got to recognize, and we've got a group that's focused on AI ML, because there's a new emerging technologies that are going to help us do this better. So the WBA's got an AI group that's taking in these new capabilities with AI and being able to drive those into the ecosystem to be able to make roaming and seamless interoperable connectivity work. And we're bringing in satellite. We have several satellite members now inside the group, and we're getting more satellites people in our group. We've got, of course, got our Converged cellular groups and all of our Wi-Fi people. So bringing it all together and then trying to figure out how we extend that coverage as we move back and forth. And I know Matt's going to come in after me and talk about probably vector, I'm hoping. And you're going to see the importance of being able to move from location to location and having that ubiquitous connected experience. So again, this is my call to everybody as kind of the chairman, but also as Boingo and also as the guy who's passionate about this, right, is we get a chance to define 6G. We are all defining what it's going to be. We at the WBA, we grew from, I don't know, a few years ago, we were below 100 members. We're well over 200, approaching 250, and I think we're going to continue to grow. You know, Steve's doing a great job doing that. But as we continue to grow, we now have a voice. We're a group of individuals who have come together, who recognize this idea that we need connectivity for everything. The world needs it. You know, we live in a crazy world where communication is going to be the only way that we're going to end up building a better world for our children and our children's children, is by being able to enable communication in better ways. And connectivity is essential for that. If you don't have connectivity, there's no communication happening. And so we need to make sure that we recognize the responsibility we kind of all have to be able to drive that forward. And I think with the collaborative voices in this room, the work groups that we're doing, we are going to be able to recognize what 6G really should be, which is connectivity ubiquitous across all these technologies that we've been working on and developing over the last few years in the WBA. And it shows by our membership, and it shows by the passion that I see from all of you when I talk to you every day, or some of you weekly, and some of you when I just come to these meetings. But it's great to be able to talk to you about that. All right, I got one last thing. I know I'm probably out of time. I want to give an example, because a lot of times you need examples to kind of drive it home. So, you know, you could probably see our marketing team shared yesterday our Port Authority. We've been working for the Port Authority, which is New York, New Jersey, trains, all the airports, all the key locations there. We've been working with them since 1999, trying to figure out how to bring connectivity to all those locations. To give you an idea of scale, 60 million people go through JFK every year. 50 million people through New York. The tunnel that was just built from Long Island into Penn Station, 50 million people go through that tunnel underneath the Hudson every year. A lot of people, a lot of different needs that they need for connectivity, whether it's calling their spouse, telling them that they've arrived, or it's checking on their kids, or it's checking on their work. They need that connectivity. And then once they get there, those locations need to be safe and secure, so there's cameras that need to be connected. There's tickets that are being processed that used to be processed with pieces of paper that are now being processed with facial recognition and other kinds of bio recognition capabilities. And all of that is being done across multiple technologies, across multiple connected technologies. We're running Wi-Fi networks, of course, through there. DAS, public DAS networks through there, private networks through there, IoT networks, badging capability networks. There's all these networks running, and they all have to work and then be able to go back to a single pane of glass so that my NOC team can end up being able to make sure all those things are working across all those technologies. And today, the way we had to do it is we had to build a venue management dashboard that pulls in all of these different technologies and all these different KPIs so that we can make sure that there's a quality service across all these hundreds of use cases that are going on across these transportation systems. It has been a challenge, but it's getting easier, right? Because of these technology advancements, because of the collaboration work that we're doing, so that when the handoff between the Wi-Fi and the cellular is working better, the handoff between the Wi-Fi and the Wi-Fi access point is finally working better. All those things are essential to being able to drive this connected vision. And it's exciting as the CTO for Boingo, and now also working with you as the chairman for the WBA, to really continue to drive this vision home, where ubiquitous, seamless, interoperable connection across all these technologies work. So with that, that's my push. I think we have a lot to do across all these domains of security, interoperable, a lot of engineering, taking advantage of AI. We're doing it in the WBA. It's exciting to see. And that's my call to everybody. Let's go build this together. We've had fun for the last 12 years that I've been doing this with you. I'm looking forward to many more years, hopefully, of doing this with you. I'm excited to be here and with all of you here today. So thanks. And with that, I appreciate your time.
Yeah, before you go, any questions for Derek from anyone?
You always rely on Dean. Nobody?
Oh, there is one.
Oh,
over there.
Yeah, please.
I wouldn't want you to go completely unquestioned.
Thanks.
I'm interested when you were talking about your projects in the Port Authority and whatnot and IoT devices. And perhaps this rests more in the residential area, but it's also in agriculture and whatnot. The non-IP type of connectivity, the LoRaWANs, the Zigbees, the Z-Waves, which proliferate in the IoT world. We just finished a comprehensive white paper on how these crash together in the multi-dwelling unit thing. Where is that in the more industrial side of things that you guys are involved in?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely releasing a lot. We've played around with a lot of LoRaWAN connections, so we have some of that out there. You know, the challenge is with Bluetooth, LoRaWAN, Halo now, all these different technologies. There's a lot of different technologies you can kind of bring to bear. You know, I remember when we were working in San Diego, Apple tags were like huge, and it was like, okay, we put up this huge tag capability across the airport in San Diego. I think that the challenge we've always had with all of these things is there hasn't been, and then maybe that's something we can take up. You know, we have opportunities. There hasn't been a single way to do it yet. And so it's very diversified. And so what we've found, you know, personally as the CTO for Boingo, who's helped different venues try to solve this, what we found is we've kind of go into each scenario trying to figure out which one of these technologies to bring in. And then we have to see how rich the API set is to be able to try to meld it in instead of it being pushed in from the start. And I think that there's work for us to do that. I'm hopeful for Halo. I think it was probably 10 years ago I sat at a Wi-Fi Alliance thing, and I remember the Orange guys were bugging me going, why are you pushing Halo? And I go, because at least it's in the Wi-Fi stack still. And so it's part of the Wi-Fi stack, and it solves some of these connectivity problems for these IoT devices. So I think that there's opportunity there. I know we're working on headless device stuff in some of the work groups for authentication and security. So I think there's a lot of work to do. I would agree with you. Still a lot of work to do there. It's something that I think the WBA can definitely push forward. So I'm hoping we do.
Yeah.
Hopefully that answered your question from my perspective. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. No, I think
okay.
we went there well. Any other questions to Derek? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.